Welcome to another episode of the Super Critical Podcast, where we delve into the fun and oftentimes nonsensical way pop culture portrays nuclear weapons. As always, you can listen to our show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you may listen to podcasts. You may also check out our website, supercriticalpodcast.com, for a full list of episodes and the occasional bonus feature or two. My name is Tim Westmyer, someone who studies nuclear weapons and works on nuclear security for a living. And I'm joined today by Gabe, my co-host for the day. How you doing, Gabe?
Hey, good. How's it going, Tim?
Pretty good. I'm glad you're here because we're going to do today another one of our Mini-Nuke episodes. You know, we've got our full-length episodes and we got our Mini-Nuke episodes. Think about the regular episodes as like a full-length interview, jam-packed with nuclear content. These Mini-Nuke episodes are like the best excerpts of an interview. Range of topics within the movie, we only focus on the tiny little nuclear content there.
So even though it's small, we still pack a punch in the Mini-Nuke.
Exactly.
Nice.
Speaking of interviews, today we watched the 2014 comedy, The Interview, about a bumbling talk show host and his producer who get an opportunity to have the interview of a lifetime, personally interview Kim Jong-Un, the new leader of North Korea. But instead, he gets recruited by the CIA on an assassin mission before ending up foiling a nuclear war and helping North Korea turn into a peaceful democracy. Not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm glad we're able to talk about this today. I know Joel, your regular show host, he was actually recruited by Dennis Rodman to go join him on a diplomatic mission to North Korea, given all the recent happenings there. So, Joel, we wish you luck in North Korea, Joel.
Godspeed, Joel. So, The Interview, 2014. This was a movie written by Seth Rogen, which is one of the main stars of the movie, as well as his writing partner, Evan Goldberg, who I enjoy, wrote Superbad and This Is the End, a couple other big comedies. This film stars Seth Rogen. As we mentioned, he's the producer of this Skylar Live news program. It's like a talk show host. And he's a guy who really is happy with his work. You know, he's been doing it for 10 years, 1,000 episodes of success and everything, but he really feels like he could be doing more. He could be the producer for like Larry King Live or someone more serious who interviews politicians and activists and things like that, not just celebrities. It's like
a TMZ. He's like a producer on a TMZ type thing, and he's got his co-host, or I guess the host of the show, Dave Skylark, who's kind of a bumbling idiot.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about nonsensical things.
He's played by James Franco, and I always see this character, Dave Skylar. He's a mix between David Frost, from Frost Nixon, meets Charlie Rose, meets Ryan Seacrest. Seems like that's the kind of character that he's trying to build there.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the profiles I'm sure he used for inspiration. And the other big star in this movie is Randall Park, who plays Kim Jong-Un, who I think is a pretty good casting decision.
It's uncanny at some points. You look at him, and it's kind of weird, actually.
Yeah, and Randall Park's great. He's one of the stars of Fresh Off the Boat, and he plays Asian Jim on The Office, one of the cold opens of The Office. So,
and also on Veep, as he's like the...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's... and we had another Veep guy in this movie as well, I think.
A lot of Veep crossover.
Yeah.
He's also going to be in the new Ant-Man film.
Oh, okay.
The one that's coming up. Seth Rogen, he was in a movie called The Green Hornet, which is a superhero movie. So it seems like a lot of superheroes in this movie named after bugs. I don't know what that means, probably nothing, but something I observed. People are probably aware of this film, probably not from seeing the movie, because not a lot of people actually saw it in the theater. Didn't have much of a release, but it had a lot of hype surrounding it, because the movie was supposed to be widely released in late 2014. However, Sony Pictures, the people who distributed this film, decided to delay it because there was a massive cyber attack on Sony Pictures by a group calling themselves the Guardians of Peace. You probably remember that, right?
Yeah, no, at first I thought it was Guardians of Peas, but then, no. It was crazy. I think a lot of the private emails and data belonging to the executives were hacked, and it was never conclusively confirmed, but the thought is that North Korea was basically behind the attack as retribution for shaming the name of its dear leader. And now, Tim, they will come after the Super Critical podcast as well. So,
well, we have an email account, supercriticalpodcast@gmail.com, that we will certainly, I'm sure I basically click any link that someone sends me for those things anyways. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, the general consensus was that North Korea was behind the attack, although they've denied it. They threatened to attack the premiere of the movie if it was shown. Nothing ended up happening, but a lot of malls were concerned because is right around the Christmas time when this film was going to be released, so families would maybe not come to the malls where the movie theaters were co-located there. So it was quite an ordeal. North Korea did not like the plot of the movie, which is basically to assassinate the supreme leader. They even asked President Obama to stop the release of the film. It's not really something Obama has control over, even when he was president, but they made the request.
Well, I don't know if they realized that it's not like the state-run production company. Like President Obama was ordering the creation of this propaganda film or something.
Exactly. So here's a quote from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman about the film in North Korea. He said, "If the United States administration tacitly approves or supports the release of this film, we will take a massive and merciless countermeasure." They also claimed, North Korea claimed that the CIA and South Korea tried to assassinate Kim Jong-Un in April 2017 using a radiological or biological poison, which seems a lot like the plot of this particular film, which they tried to use ricin.
But that of course failed because Kim Jong-Un is not susceptible to any type of poison, and in fact, poison makes him stronger. So.
Exactly. Yeah. All this hype surrounding the film probably could have maybe helped its success at the box office, but unfortunately, it kind of flopped. Not many people were able to see it because it wasn't in that many theaters, and with critics, only 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, of course, everyone uses as the absolute end-all, be-all for rating systems. We'll talk a little bit at the end of the podcast how we thought about it, but let's go through this here. We'll run through the plot so that we can get super critical about the nuclear content, and as usual, spoiler warning for this movie that came out in 2014. If you haven't seen it, you can get it on a lot of streaming services, on DVD, and check it out, or some of the choice scenes. We'll put the links to their YouTube videos in our show notes here, so check that out. Gabe, why don't you start us off here? What's this Act 1 for this particular movie?
Yeah, so I think we talked about it. There's this show featuring this guy Dave Skylark, who's a bit of a ditz, dunce, and even though they're best friends, Aaron's kind of feeling that they need to up their game a little bit. They can't just be doing what was it, Rob Lowe losing his hair type interviews and other excess Hollywood type pieces. So he's brainstorming to get something a little bit juicier, a little bit more serious, and the star of the show, Dave, he finds out that actually Kim Jong-Un, the leader of North Korea, is a huge fan of his show and says, "Hey, we should go interview him."
Along with his other favorite movie, The Big Bang Theory, which I just realized that's kind of a fun little pun because the movie starts with a little girl singing a song about why they just wish the United States would die, and that would make this little girl happy. And then there's a rocket test right behind her during her song. So The Big Bang Theory, nukes, it all makes sense there. Yeah. Well done, guys. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so this is all timely because in the movie, North Korea detonates a nuclear weapon off some small island in the Pacific.
Not just detonating a nuclear bomb like underground, because they've done a series of nuclear bomb tests underground.
Okay.
This is we launched a nuclear weapon on an ICBM in a small island in the South Pacific. I'm pretty sure they don't own that island or have any sort of relationship with the people that live on that island. And a 15 megaton nuclear bomb went off in the atmosphere. And I don't know if they show a picture of it that they're trying to say, like there's a real TV news anchor that has it on there. I think it's Brian Williams.
They had a bunch of different real.
So that might have been stock footage because it actually was video of a real test. It was a 1958 U.S. underwater nuclear test at an atoll in the South Pacific, in Awak Atoll. So I don't know if we're trying to pass that off as the actual imagery of the test or just here's some stock footage of nuclear tests. But
right.
Interesting enough, that was an underwater test. They were trying to test to see what an underwater nuclear bomb would do to a fleet of destroyers and other naval ships. 15 megatons also, by the way, is huge. The United States never fielded a bomb that big in its arsenal. The largest test ever was the Tsar Bomba test by the Soviet Union, and I think that was supposed to be 50 megatons. And 15 it's pretty big. We never deployed something like that. 9 megatons was about the biggest we ever put on a missile. The North Koreans in real life have never got anything close to that. It's closer to maybe like 20, 30 maybe kilotons, which is a lot smaller than, which is like Megatons, 1,000 kilotons. A lot bigger when you have 15 megatons.
Can I just say that I love that we're 2 minutes into the plot and we're already getting super critical
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
So
sorry.
No, it's fantastic.
Let's run through this. So Skylar sets up this interview, right?
Yeah, so they do get the interview arranged, and they're scheduled to go to North Korea, and sure enough, once the CIA finds out that Dave's going to be going over, they start to get interested in, and they basically recruit them or honeypot them, as is a running joke through the film. There's an attractive CIA spy who honeypots Dave and says, we need you to assassinate Kim Jong-Un while you're there. And
very politely, too. It's not like we're ordering you to. It's, hey, could you guys do this while you're there? It's like, hey, if you're going to go to the grocery store, can you just pick me up a couple tomatoes, couple
Well, that's
onions?
how the honeypot works. I mean, you got she had a nice outfit on. She had some cute glasses. All you have to do is ask nicely then.
These are pros.
Exactly.
They know exactly how to push this guy's buttons. Because I enjoyed the business meeting ahead of time where Seth Rogen's character went to China near the North Korean-China border to set up this meeting. Because they go to a place and they name it. It's Dandong, China.
Okay.
Which is I was surprised. It's a real city.
Okay.
It's one of the cities where the largest amount of goods that flows into North Korea from
really?
China. There's a lot of factories that produce goods that go into North Korea.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest ways that North Korea is able to evade sanctions that are placed on it through Chinese companies that are there, and a lot of stuff gets brought over the border. Why the movie decided to put this much detail and research into a comedy like this?
Yeah, that's what we were saying, that there were
crazy.
just some aspects of this movie that seemed so much attention to detail for what's essentially a buddy comedy or a bro comedy. They really went pretty deep on this.
They went into the weeds of saying, how do we contact North Korea? Well, there's an Olympic delegation, so there's probably a way to reach out through talking to the Olympic delegation and things like that. It is pretty interesting. One of the other two main ways that when the United States wants to send a back channel message to North Korea, one of the biggest is the United Nations delegates that are there from North Korea, because they have diplomatic immunity to come in and they operate there. But one of the other big ways is the Swedish embassy in Pyongyang.
Oh, okay.
Sends a lot of channels back and forth to the United States and North Korea.
Are these communications, is it with the knowledge? Does Kim Jong-un know that part of his?
Yes.
Okay, so this
is the way we do it without having an official diplomatic presence.
Gotcha.
Or we tweet at it. I don't know. We do either of this, any of those.
Since 2017, yeah, we get tweets, whatever. So CIA gets involved. So the method of assassination is when Dave is going to go shake Kim Jong-un's hand before the interview, he's supposed to wear a patch with ricin on it. And by having that skin-to-skin contact after the handshake, that will deliver the poison into Kim Jong-un's body and basically kill him without them knowing about it. And there's a lot of jokes in the movie. It's a small adhesive patch that goes... This is a running gag in the film of the fact that this patch is so deadly and they're going to discover it and that kind of thing. But all you really need to know is that they're going to poison Kim Jong-un by this ricin patch.
So I know this is a Nuke super critical podcast here. It is odd that they put so much detail into the other things, like the scenes in China, having a real location that's near the border.
Right.
Later on, you see this room that looks like a conference room, like a long table, where there's South Korean and North Korean guards there, and the wall is painted blue. I mean, that's a real room that's at the border of the DMZ, the official checkpoint where these people will meet. Like, that's where they hold a lot of the North Korean, South Korean delegations, and they have that room painted the right color. I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
But one thing they get wrong for some weird reason is ricin is not dangerous. It's not lethal by the skin touch. If you get ricin on your skin, you'll have like a little bad rash. It'll be kind of itchy. There's some cream you can put on it, but it's not something that will kill you, especially like the way you see in the film. It is very deadly if you swallow it. A lot of people know ricin from Breaking Bad,
right?
Because you make it out of castor beans. You have to process them, and if you do it the right way, it's very, very deadly. And out of the course of 2 days, you'll die apparently like the flu, and you never really understand why. It's very hard to trace it, but it's definitely not something that will kill you by skin touch.
That's interesting.
Anyways, I don't know why they did that, but
speaking about ingestion, I mean that was the So they get to North Korea, and actually one of the first things that happens in North Korea is this little patch. Dave hides it in a pack of gum, and the first thing that happens is a guard finds it, and the guard puts the gum in his mouth and is chewing it, and they're just kind of like, uh-oh, yeah. So plans already gone a little bit sideways there.
And this guy was one of Kim's favorite guards.
Yeah.
Like, he knew him since
childhood.
He was born,
Yeah, like a loyal confidant.
Oops.
Yep. So so they have to get a new patch shipped in by missile. There's a whole scene involving some comedy around that where Seth Rogen's character has to go out and intercept this missile, and a tiger gets loose, and that kind of silliness. But while this is happening, actually Dave meets Kim Jong-Un. And Kim Jong-Un is this huge fan, and basically they have like a bro.
Yeah.
They have like a bro moment, and they're bonding, and Kim like takes him for a ride in his tank, and they're playing basketball together, and
he shows him his car collection.
Yep. There's he's got ladies there. It's all kinds of fun.
They call me incompetent.
That's exactly what they said about me when I scored this interview.
No way.
Said Dave Skylark is stupid and incompetent.
You're handsome, competent, suave. How dare they?
I pretend like their insults don't get to me. But they do.
You know what's more destructive than a nuclear bomb?
Words.
They bond over their love of Katy Perry, which you think at one point is just like a fun little joke, but this is a central plot point, is that Kim Jong-un loves Katy Perry, specifically the song, I guess it's Firework? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty nice song. He likes margaritas, and he likes all these things despite the fact that his father, Kim Jong-il, who passed away in 2011, that's when Kim Jong-un officially took over as the supreme leader of North Korea, that at that time he was telling all his sons, you guys can't like this stuff, you're being decadent with the West, and that's why you have to stop all this, because it's making you, I think they call it in the movie, effeminate.
Yeah, but there's some reality to this, right? Because isn't Kim Jong-il himself was a pretty big buff of some Western culture, Western movies?
He loved parts of Western culture. He loved, I think it was Hennessy, that he was a big fan of Hennessy and cognac. He imported lots of luxury goods, lots of Rolex watches. He bragged that he had the world's largest DVD collection. And I'm sure a lot of the Western movies...
This is one of the ridiculous claims that actually could potentially be true.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there was certainly a lot of that. And so it wouldn't be crazy, though, to think that he was being hypocritical towards his sons, because he treats similarly his people in terms of their ability to have things versus his, and how they should approach the West, and all kinds of things like that. I know one of Kim Jong-il's sons, who was recently assassinated, most likely by Kim Jong-un, one of his half-brothers. He got assassinated in Malaysia at an airport. Right. There's crazy video footage of that, most likely poisoned by...
which is crazy. I mean,
given
it bears some
the movie,
weird... I didn't even think about it. It bears some weird similarities to this movie. I wonder if he got some ideas from somewhere.
Oops. But
Thank you, Sony.
That brother was... the famous story with him was he was supposed to maybe be one of the people that would come up instead of Kim Jong-un to be the new supreme leader, but he got caught multiple times, leaving the country, having a very quote-unquote decadent lifestyle, and I think including one of the times going to Disneyland. Kim Jong-il found out about that and wasn't so happy.
Okay. Dave and Kim Jong-un, they're bonding, and Dave decides he doesn't want to go through with this assassination. He's, it's his friend now.
Yeah.
What happens in the meantime, though, is actually this guard that ate the poison chewing gum. He dies from the poison. Actually, in the process, is very gory scene where he accidentally shoots the other confidant guard from the Kim family in the head, and so Kim Jong-un is like devastated. And there's a scene in a restaurant where Kim Jong-un is, when he's talking to Dave, he's kind of speaking in a rational way, not crazy at all. And he just goes on this rant about showing what a strong person he is and threatening to nuke the world and all this kind of stuff.
To those who seek to undermine me, at home and abroad, I cannot respond with anything less than the totality of my strength. If 1 billion people across the earth and in my own country must be burned to prove it, then my worthiness as a king will be demonstrated!
and Dave starts to wonder whether this guy's actually a little bit off his rocker, and whether he's been given a false impression. There was this one, when they're brought into North Korea first, they're shown this grocery store that's full of food, and there's a fat child outside with a lollipop, and he goes to that grocery store and sees it's all fake. It's like a Potemkin village type thing.
Fake news, fake grocery stores.
Exactly. 2017. Hashtag 2017. So they decide that, but instead of taking him down with the poison, what Dave's going to do is he's going to take him down with the interview. He's going to show North Korea and the world that Kim Jong-Un is just a mortal person. He's not a person who, can speak to dolphins, or there's a running joke that he doesn't like pee or poop in the movie.
And this is the idea of Suk, who is a person who's like a communications director for North Korea, and her and Seth Rogen's character have the romantic interest here. It's one of the parts of the movie that I'm not really super comfortable with because of how it's not great, but it's a comedy, I suppose you can say at least that it wasn't trying for high art.
Right.
But she has the idea, of instead of killing him, make him bleed, make him look like not a god.
Yep, that's right.
Make him cry, which Skylar's very good at touching those emotional heartstrings.
So the interview goes down, and it starts off with Kim Jong-Un gives Dave a puppy, and Dave is like, he's overwhelmed. He just loves this puppy, and he starts asking these softball questions. Everyone's worried that he's not gonna stick to the plan, but then he lays into him, and he starts asking questions about margaritas, and it starts with why isn't he feeding his people, but then question about margaritas and Katy Perry, and ends with a very interesting rendition of Firework, and which brings tears to the eyes of the fearless leader.
I don't need my father. I am strong.
Also, I like that interview because he does a little bit of there's a back and forth there. Kim Jong-un says, hey, well, I can't feed my people because there are international sanctions against me. Isn't it amazing that we've been able to do as much on our own despite all of this international pressure? When he starts to turn the table, when Skylar starts to put the pressure on, he says, you've been spending $800 million on your nukes per year, and you don't have any money to feed your people. Weirdly enough, that's a pretty close number to the amount of that they spend. Yeah,
cool.
It's probably a little bit higher, but not by much. It's probably still less than a billion, but at least around 2014, that number was pretty accurate. So again, fascinating bit of accuracy. This compound where they're at, which is Kim Jong-un home, seems to be close, maybe a little bit more dreary, but pretty close to the real place, which is, it has a couple different names. Usually it's called Central Luxury Mansion or Residence Number 55. It's kind of the different names that either internally within Korea or how U.S. observers talk about that particular place.
Okay.
But it is interesting. It's a big compound. It's got a lot of houses. It's one of the places where Kim Jong-un decided to make his home. There's an underground railroad station that can get around to different places, so it's a little bit safer on that front. It also has a somewhat nuke-proof bunker with a lot of concrete surrounding it where they can conduct war plans and wartime activities underneath in the event of war. It's fairly well guarded, a lot of layers of security and things like that against conventional attacks. Yeah. So it's not just a home.
Okay.
It's also a compound.
Yeah, that's what it looked like in the movie, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked like a fortress or something.
Well, they do a good job of matching up the architecture that is in Pyongyang versus kind of what you might think it looks like. Because in real life, the pictures that have gotten out of the country, you can see that a lot of the country, especially the railroad stations, look a lot like it's just stuck in time. Yeah. Looks a lot like 1950s, exactly. 1960s time period, because there was a lot of exchanges with the Soviet Union and the same architecture, and it's just there. So it's fascinating to see that they attach that to his compound, and maybe it's not exactly accurate, but it looks pretty cool. But you noticed that the airport where they landed in Pyongyang, it looks exactly like the actual airport.
Yeah, no, because they had Pyongyang on the airport in Western characters. And Tim was like, Tim got super critical. I was like, actually, Tim, I think that's what it really looks like. And we consulted the Google, and the Google, they did a good job with that.
Well, Gabe's a pilot, and he notices these things.
Exactly.
So I appreciate your keen insight on that front.
So the interview goes down. So according to the plan, Kim Jong-Un is shamed in front of his countrymen and the whole world. And as this is going on, there's kind of a battle ensuing in the control room where the Kim Jong-Un loyalists are trying to stop the broadcast from going on. And after the interview, this kind of spills out into the compound, and you get the sense that just chaos is breaking loose, and the whole country is kind of getting destabilized because of this interview. And you see Dave and Aaron are able to escape with what was the woman's Sook with Sook. So the three of them escape. They go into the tank, and Kim Jong-Un is in a helicopter, and there's this epic scene where like Kim Jong-Un wants to launch all his nuclear weapons, and like all around them there's like these missiles coming out of the silos, and he yells out.
He says, like, on my order, prepare the launch at my command, and he starts counting down.
And then Kim's, like, yelling, like, Dave, and Dave's like, Kim, and it's just, It's ridiculously over the top.
So Kim's on the radio in his helicopter with this, radioing this random, I don't know, 20-something security official who has got his hands on a big red plunger button. There are always big red buttons in movies.
Exactly.
It's just what we think it is, but... So, yeah, and this big red button, and he goes 3, 2, but before he can say 1, the tank, which I think is, I refer to it as Chekhov's tank, because you see it earlier in the movie when they're hanging out, Kim and Skylar. This tank fires up a rocket to the beautiful music of Katy Perry's Firework, hits the helicopter, and then in this slow motion, very graphic, supposedly in the original cut, much more graphic scene, Kim Jong-un's head basically explodes.
Face is like vaporized, So he dies. Clearly, the whole country is kind of in chaos. Dave and Aaron are able to escape through a tunnel. Sook ends up staying behind to make sure that as she says, I think that the power doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And Dave and Aaron are rescued by a SEAL team disguised as North Korean soldiers. That was alluded to earlier in the movie as well, and it's kind of happily ever after.
Yeah.
Dave is able to write a book about his experience. The title was there's a lot of Lord of the Rings jokes in this, and the title had some. It was called.
I think it was called like Dave Skylar, An Unexpected Journey.
So yeah, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm sure all you Lord of the Rings fans out there would appreciate that.
It was pretty good. I appreciated the Lord of the Rings humor in there. I actually got more of that references than I did the Katy Perry stuff, because I'm aware of that song. I saw the Super Bowl.
Well, you don't like Katy Perry? You don't drink margaritas, Tim?
If Kim Jong-un wasn't a terrible times 50 person,
more, yeah, exactly.
He does seem like he lives quite a crazy life. So he's the second of 3 children of Kim Jong-il. He's got a lot of stepbrothers. He is assumed to be around 33 years old. This is in 2017. We're recording this. So kind of right about my age. Yeah. He's a big fan of basketball, which a lot of people know. He grew up possibly. There are a lot of reports that indicate that he grew up in a boarding school in Switzerland.
Okay.
And the people that have talked to him knew that he played a lot of basketball. He was a big fan of the Michael Jordan Bulls.
Oh, wow.
And all that 1990s basketball. And big fan of Kobe Bryant. And myself, as a Los Angeles Lakers fan, we could talk a little bit about that. He's also a big fan of skiing, which I know.
Really? I'm a skier. No, there is I was looking at this last week. There's a very luxurious ski resort in North Korea, and like all things in North Korea, it's like completely abandoned. There's nobody that uses it. All the pictures of it are completely empty, but it's beautiful with these like handcrafted wood signs, similar to something you would make on your wood burning, Tim.
Yeah.
And no, seriously, it's interesting. Now I know why.
Yeah, there's a photo of Kim Jong-un by himself on a ski lift. It's kind of sad if you think about it, but he definitely doesn't have skis on. But he's checking it out, and I think he says he has an intimate hand in building all of these things. He loves himself some Johnny Walker whiskey, and he has a Mercedes-Benz 600 luxury sedan. Not Cadillac like they show in the movie, but he's got one of these cars and smokes fancy cigarettes. And yeah, so he seems like he's a pretty good guy, except for the fact that he's basically ruling a country where a lot of people are starving. There are mass concentration camps and workers that are essentially treated in slavery-like conditions. And most likely he ordered his uncle, who was a reformist before he took over, to be killed by anti-aircraft artillery gun.
Yeah, and here, I mean, we're taping this in August, and, we're here. North Korea is back in the news. Donald Trump had some heated exchanges with North Korea about their missile program and their threats to target Guam, and so yeah, very much in the news for some bad stuff, and I think people are definitely having an eye on North Korea these days.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the nuclear plot. So the movie ends, as we mentioned, they're now a democracy. I think they say elections are about to be held, and everything seems like it's working out pretty good. This movie definitely is one of those films where North Korea is treated like a silly joke,
right?
In many ways,
yeah.
It's funny. We think of all the things like, aren't they odd? Their leader says that they don't poop, or that he talks to dolphins, and it's kind of a silly place that we really shouldn't necessarily worry about because they're never going to build these weapons. They're backwards. I think one of the biggest things that maybe this movie is a little better than some other caricatures of North Korea, but it's a weird country, but it shouldn't be considered a joke, at least in terms of its nuclear weapons and missile program. The Defense Intelligence Agency recently reported that they believe North Korea is capable of fitting a compact nuclear warhead on some of their ballistic missiles that they've recently tested. The agency says that probably the upper range of how many nuclear warheads North Korea has is somewhere around 60. Depends a lot on how much we think they have in terms of fissile material, plutonium and uranium, which is up from 40 just a couple of months ago. So there's clearly an upwards trajectory in how many weapons they might have.
And remind the listeners, so compared to United States, how much in the United States arsenal, just for comparison?
Thousands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 60, but even 20, even 10 would still be a pretty substantial number. But as we'll get into a little bit later on, there is a certain point where, as a country that's new to nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons development, there's a certain point where you start to feel a little bit more secure in your ability to deter another country from using nuclear weapons against you. Right now, they're in this interesting period where they have nuclear weapons, but if we knew where they were, and if we were willing to launch a nuclear attack on those weapons themselves, you potentially could get them. But with the big caveat of knowing where they are and be willing to do using nuclear weapons and not worry about a conventional retaliation against Seoul. North Korea is also great at evading sanctions. They've been very good at adapting their procurement networks, going through a lot of false companies that are set up. One of the stories that recently broke is that they use embassies around the world as fronts for luxury goods and other things being moved around. So they can export goods, import goods. It's not probably as good as it could be, but it's fairly good enough that they're able to have the funds to build, which is mostly these days an indigenous nuclear weapon and missile program.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, are they getting help from anyone in this, or is this just kind of them doing it on their own?
They had a lot of help from Iran and the Soviet Union and China at various points in their development, but in the last couple of years, they've gotten to the point where they can build their own rockets. They may use old designs for the initial starting point, but this latest rocket, which again we'll talk about in a few seconds here, is mostly an indigenous design. At least they've adapted it to the point now where they can build it without outside help.
Well, okay, so they have this program. They have a small arsenal, if not if not the same size as the United States. I mean, where does that put them from a strategic standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where does that put them with respect to us?
There is a big debate about what North Korea wants its nuclear weapons for. Is it to have a plan that they want to unify North and South Korea under their control? Do they just have ambitions on attacking South Korea, Japan, the United States, going after those countries because they're madmen, they're crazy? Or are they things that they have simply to survive? They are consistently worried about the United States or South Korea either trying to assassinate their leaders, trying to do regime change. Recently in the news, there's been conversations in the U.S. Congress about trying to separate North Korea's leaders from their nuclear weapons program. Those words sound a lot like regime change, and they look at countries like Iraq, Libya, countries who previously had WMD programs and then got rid of them, and then turns out what happened to them, they got overthrown by the United States, and their leaders were hung or shot in the streets.
If you have a WMD program plus an eccentric leader who kills his own people, the track record there isn't very good.
So a lot of those different things come together, and people are trying to figure out how much of this is real, what's the actual purpose, because North Korea it's a hermit kingdom. It's hard to understand and look into inside that country and try to figure out. A lot of things we know are from defectors that leave the country, either go to South Korea or they go somewhere else, maybe the United States. There's actually someone, we're currently in Arlington, Virginia, not too far from here. There is someone living who used to be the procurement network guy for North Korea, and he's left, and he's now helping people understand their networks.
It's fascinating.
So it is trying to understand. Those questions are very difficult, but you mentioned strategic perspective on this and deterrence. Well, one of the biggest things that we worry about North Korea is crisis instability or crisis stability, like that balance. I would probably say, from my view, it's not likely that North Korea just one day is going to wake up and decide to launch an attack against the United States. Most likely he's not going to have an interview with some Western journalist and gets so angry that he's going to launch. Cause
Anderson Cooper or Sanjay Gupta or something, yeah.
He's not going to see something on TV and then tweet out like, all right, here we go. You guys are about to get attacked, because it would mean most likely the suicide of his entire leadership, and North Korea would be overthrown. There would be some damage done to the United States and most likely South Korea and Japan, but it would result in their destruction if it was an outright attack. China's even said, if you start this war, we're not going to back you up.
And you think he knows that, even though he seems kind of loony, he kind of knows this, you think?
I think the North Korean leaders are mostly horrible, but they are rational. They have an understanding of what they want and kind of what they want to do to prevent their destruction. But what we worry about is a crisis, maybe miscalculation. Kim Jong-un's threatened to consider launching a test rocket over Japan. Most of their tests have been done in North Korean airspace or in international waters. This particular one would test a medium-range rocket. It would fly a test missile over Japan and then land several kilometers away from Guam, a U.S. military base. Trump came back and said, if they tried to do that, they would be met with fire and fury, something like the world has never seen. Those kind of things, if they did, North Korea has now said that they're not going to follow through with that plan, that they were just studying it, which is what they originally said they were going to do. If they would have gone through with that, and if the United States would have shot that test missile down, which you can argue whether...
Can we do that?
I mean, if we tried, we would hope that we did, because if we missed, our entire missile defense system is in doubt. But if we were able to do that, or even if we tried, that would be considered probably by North Korea to potentially be an act of war, shooting down someone's test missiles. That's a pretty big deal. We would not like it so much. In recent weeks, we tested an ICBM out of California just to show that they work. And those kind of things, or maybe there's a test, some sort of missile test in the region by the United States that might get interpreted by North Korea as an incoming attack. There's a lot of joint exercise between South Korea and the United States. They do these exercises on a regular basis. Well, what if one of these days they get misinterpreted as a plan, an assembly for war? Because you have to move all of these various military assets into the region to actually start a war. It might be perceived as an actual war. We had a problem with this. It was called the Able Archer exercise with NATO during the Cold War, where we had this multi-country military practice exercise, and the Soviet Union was interpreting this as, okay, they're getting ready to attack, we better get ready. Yeah. And there was almost a miscommunication and war. So that's the kind of thing that people worry about. So that's called crisis stability, when you have certain things set up so that even if there is a crisis, it doesn't end up going nuclear very quickly. Crisis instability is when you have a very dangerous and unstable condition where there is incentives on either side to use nuclear weapons first, or if the other side perceives there is an incentive there. So what that means is North Korea has a relatively small number of nuclear weapons and delivery systems. They worry if there's an incoming attack against those systems, they're going to lose them. So if you don't, instead of losing them, you just use them.
Yeah, send
so
them on.
There's an incentive to launch first, because otherwise it would be wiped out. So the United States might understand that, and if there's a crisis, they would feel like they would have to use them first, because if we don't use them, then there's going to be an incoming attack.
And in terms of actually the decision for that to get launched, I mean, do you think it is Kim Jong-Un who has the final say there? Do they have a system in place? Or, I mean, how do you think that works? Because in the movie, it seems very much like he's they're waiting for him to give the command. Do you think they have a more formal structure?
If he doesn't say that final number in the countdown, they can't possibly push the button.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of thing where there's some information, but we don't have a lot of details on what's called the command and control system, or the C2. This is another aspect to crisis stability. If you don't believe that your command and control system can withstand a first strike, you would be worried that even if your weapons are still there, you can't actually order them to be used. Or some sort of communication breakdown, or the launch silos won't be able to be used.
Right.
That whole process, there's a very complicated chain. It's not simply a matter of having a bomb and a radio to have someone push the button. Yeah. It's a lot of things that are you have to set up.
Yeah.
The United States spends a lot of money so that their system is redundant, that there are things that can't be hacked into, radio signals can't be broken, those kind of communication systems, so that in the event of a nuclear attack, which is a pretty disruptive event, you don't have that incentive to use it first. Because if you do, you think there's an incoming attack. What if it's not actually an attack? It's just any number of these examples we've had of, oh, never mind, it was just a satellite launch.
Right.
Or it was a flock of geese. Or it was the sun reflecting off of a certain beautiful horizon.
Yeah.
That's not actually a nuclear attack. So if you don't have those systems in place where you feel like we can survive a little bit, once the bombs start hitting and we have confirmation, then we can use them. That's another big thing you want to have. So North Korea may not have a C2 system that they consider sturdy enough and resilient enough against an incoming attack. Because if you don't feel like your systems are strong enough that you can survive a little bit and then order an attack, you do what's called pre-delegation. You tell the local commanders who actually have their fingers on the button, because Kim most likely won't push a button himself.
Right.
It'll be someone in a missile silo or working with a mobile missile launching system that pushes the final button, or most likely turns a key or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a giant plunger like you see in the cartoons with the TNT.
Right.
But
Wile E. Coyote.
So pre-delegation means that, all right, there's a crisis. We pre-delegated our launch authority under these conditions, launch your weapon, and it's out of the leadership hands. They can still order an attack, but the people locally can do so. It's most likely that North Korea doesn't have safety measures and other kinds of things like permissive action links, or PALs, that are locks you put on a missile system or a missile warhead itself that prevent them from being used or detonated without a certain code being given. So the United States now has these PAL systems on their missiles. So so that an individual person who is in a silo has to receive these codes. They get them, they launch, they're told where to launch, and that something goes off. So that way, someone who's a little bit crazy, maybe they had a bad night, maybe they have mental issues, maybe they're upset because they watched an interview that they didn't like, or someone interviewed them, any number of things. So they can't just use these weapons by themselves. It's uncertain whether or not North Korea has those. Most likely they don't. And it also most likely they don't pre-delegate their weapons. It's all pretty centralized, which might create an incentive for someone to take out Kim Jong-Un, and who knows what the process is in place after that.
So North Korea is clearly the hermit kingdom. We don't have a lot of visibility in terms of how their nuclear launch process works. Is that different from maybe other countries, say Russia or China or something? Or is this a problem for most countries where we just have this strategic black hole where we have to make some guesses?
Well, it's a big benefit when we can know what another country does in terms of their command and control. It's difficult because you want to strike that balance between giving out enough information as the country that has the weapons and the weapon systems that you let the other side know, hey, we have this, it works. Here's the process, so don't freak out. We have permissive active links, but you try not to give enough information that they can exploit those things. So that's why you have to try to make them resilient and all of that. It's actually it's a pretty big positive benefit from arms control agreements. You know how many weapons the other side has, so you don't have to build an endless supply of your own. If you know they have, say, 1,500 nuclear weapons that can be deployed on missiles, bombers, submarines, things like that, that can use... You can use that information to plan your own defenses and how many you need to deter someone from being able to use them. There's the strategic discussions that take place between countries. The United States and China are a little bit reluctant on that front. China wants us to recognize them as a country that can deter us, that we have a sense of mutual assured destruction. The United States is somewhat not comfortable saying that exists as a reality, even though possibly it does. Because if they do that, if they recognize that publicly, then countries like Taiwan might think, oh, so you are deterred from fighting China? That's not great, because that prevents us from being able to rely on you as an ally. Those are very complicated debates that countries go through, and it makes the United States potentially have to ask itself, should it help North Korea? Should it reach out to North Korea so that it can maybe develop some of these command and control systems? Should we help them build these systems in place, or procedures like the 2-man rule, where it takes 2 people that are separate in a room to turn a key and actually launch a weapon? Those are the kind of things that we might go about helping them. There's been a lot of policy recommendations by analysts that we should go out and do this. We actually did some of this stuff with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, even at the height of our conflict and ideological differences and back and forth threats. We still cooperated on these kind of things because it helps create a sense of stability, as much as that stability between nuclear-powered countries that can exist.
Right.
Or if we don't help them, maybe China can. Pakistan, who has a relationship with North Korea, most likely Pakistan has built these PAL systems indigenously, so they can potentially outsource that technology. North Korea would obviously be worried about a kill switch being put into those systems. But if you tell them, hey, this is how you build the tech, build it yourself.
Yeah.
Or if we focus on procedures, that might be helpful to increase crisis stability should a crisis happen, which is, I would say, probably just a matter of time before something like this might happen.
Oh, geez, that's scary. Well, so can we talk, I mean, just for a second, so that's all about the process. In terms of the actual, like, the hardware itself, right? Mm-hmm. In the movie, it just struck me as, like, he gives the order, and all of a sudden, like, 2 minutes later, there are, like, missiles coming out of the silos, and I don't know, are they supposed to, like, peek out of the silos before they're launched? I mean, do they actually have weapons that are kind of ready to go, like, on that quick notice, you think, or?
Today? Most likely not.
Okay.
2014.
Right. I feel better now.
2014, most likely
Definitely not. Yeah.
But let me create some anxiety for you.
Okay.
The North Korean weapons are definitely not silo based these days. So in the movie, for some weird reason, all of these missiles are right next to each other, and they're right next to Kim Jong-Un's home base of operation. Wow, that's an incredible set of targets for U.S. defense planners.
It made for a great final scene where the helicopter's flying through this like landscape of missiles rising, but yeah, it's kind of silly.
It's definitely not a thing you would do to plan where you put these weapons, because in the United States these days we have all of our ICBM missile fields, like literally call them fields of missiles, like you're planting a garden or something. They're out kind of in the middle of nowhere. These days they're in the Midwest, so like Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas. Sorry, no offense to the people that live in that area, but you're kind of the sponge. Center of the country will put all these weapons there. They're going to have to be targeted by the other side's forces, and at least they're not located right next to like major, large cities.
Right.
But the idea is, when you arrange these missile silos, you put one missile silo far enough away from another one that one incoming nuclear weapon can't destroy 2 of them.
Okay.
Because most likely you're going to have to put a couple different weapons on an individual silo, because what if you miss? What if it's hardened stronger than one weapon can destroy? You'd have to do a number of different things. You don't put them all in the exact same place, and you don't put them near the White House, where the decision maker that has to make that choice.
Because that's where they're going to strike. Yeah, that's where the missile's going to come at you, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
So North Korea doesn't have silo-based missiles. The idea, too, that a silo would open up and then the rocket would kind of slowly reach its way out. When you build a launch system, you want it so that when you have what's called positive control, you say, all right, we're going to launch. Let's do it now. When the decision maker says go, the time that it takes for that missile to get launched is as little as possible.
Okay.
Because if there's an incoming attack that's targeting those weapons, you want to get them up and out pretty quickly. So things like the rockets slowly raising themselves up, that maybe just happened to be the stage of production and design of where they're at in North Korea. The United States used to have pretty slow launching weapons because it takes time to fuel the rockets, because most of the time, if you have liquid-based fuel for your missiles, it's corrosive, the fuel itself.
So it can't sit in the tanks.
It can't just sit in the tanks. So you have to fuel them, and that could take several hours sometimes. And a lot of the times, the quote-unquote best missile silo system is one that has solid fuel that just sits ready to go, and can launch inside the silo, so it doesn't take time for it to rise up. Or if you have a system that called a cold launch, it launches the missile up quickly, and then the missile then first stage ignites and it flies away, so that silo isn't destroyed, and you can put a new missile in it, reload, and then fire again.
Oh, okay.
So those are very complex and advanced silo systems. Apparently, the ones in the film are pretty rudimentary.
Yeah, primitive, yeah.
But today, North Korea's missile systems, as they are underground. The thing that they're trying to build, which they're trying to build by early 2020s, is a mobile-based rocket launch system. So these are things on the back of trucks. You go out to the middle of a field, so it's kind of hard to track them. If you launch a weapon from wherever it happens to be, you'd have to know where it's going to go. So, because it's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
And these things would rise up. The launchers would rise up. They'd stabilize themselves. They would get fueled really quickly, and then they would get launched from there.
Okay.
They wouldn't be in a silo.
Right.
It might be a plan that they want to do eventually, but these mobile launch systems allow you to hide them in caves and tunnel systems. You'll never know what door these systems will come out of. A lot of China's mobile missile systems are in mountains with hundreds and hundreds of miles of tunnels, so it's really difficult to know where to get to them.
I mean, do you think that's realistic? I mean, it seems like they've come up the learning curve kind of alarmingly quickly. I mean, I remember, it seems like not too long ago, I mean, they had all these failed tests and everyone's laughing at them, and now all of a sudden, like, Anderson Cooper on CNN's talking about this, and Donald Trump's tweeting at them.
In any sort of missile development program, you're going to have some hiccups at the beginning.
I think about those clips of like the early NASA rockets, going off in like wild directions and exploding.
Where are we going on Monday? So there's an upcoming big solar eclipse. We're going to be flying down to Kitty Hawk.
Yeah, well, hopefully the weather will be good. We'll take a small plane down to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Well, imagine all of those failed attempts at flight at the beginning. It takes some time for these things to be developed. But even before this latest ICBM that they have most likely pretty close to being able to deploy, maybe next year, they had the Taepodong 2, which was a launch pad launched ICBM. So it's not in a silo. It sits on a launch pad, and it takes time to fuel it and launch it. Those are easy targets to destroy them. You hear a lot of people, a lot of politicians and talking heads will say, why don't you just blow up the missiles on the launch pad? Why do we even let them sit there?
Right.
Well, North Korea has listened to those arguments and have said, great, we're going to put them on mobile launchers. You won't be able to find them. Nice try. These mobile missile systems require pretty advanced C2 command and control systems.
Okay.
If Kim Jong-Un wants to maintain centralized control, because you have to be able to communicate with them. They're on the move, so we don't know where they are. They don't know maybe where they are at any given moment. So they have to be able to communicate with them instantly, whether it's radio, some sort of secured system. Those mobile systems, early on, for a lot of countries that have had them, you've seen pre-delegated launch authority given to them. So that's a pretty dangerous situation. So you asked about the recent developments. I'll talk a little bit about that. So North Korea has conducted at least 5 nuclear weapon tests or nuclear device tests. Usually you define a weapon as an explosive device attached to a delivery system that can be used and deployed.
Kind of like a firework.
Show them what you're worth.
Yeah.
These test devices, they've done 5 tests. Possibly the 6th one might be coming in the next couple of months. These tests were done in 2006 was the first one, 2009, 2013, and there's been 2 in 2016. And the world laughed at North Korea the first couple times they tested these nuclear devices. The first couple ones might have fizzled out, didn't actually create a full chain reaction.
Yeah. And is this progressing? Is this how long you would expect it to take a country in in the 2010s to develop it? Because we've been making nuclear weapons now the world has known about it for more than 50 years. I mean, is this slow progress? Is this normal progress?
I would say this is pretty fast.
Really?
We took us quite a while to develop fairly advanced missile systems. It used to be our rocket systems, like our Titan II missile system. It lasted a long time, but it wasn't planned to be in the service for very long, less than 10 years.
Okay.
Because these things got a lot of turnover early on because we would develop something new. And now this current Minuteman rockets that we have now have been in service for quite a long time because these things have gotten to the point where they're good and any sort of change is just marginally better than the previous system. It takes a while to perfect a lot of the different things. Because it's not just having a warhead. It's not just having a missile. It's having a reentry vehicle. Because these things go up into space, and they come down and they enter the atmosphere. Right. They need to be shielded. They need to not just crumble.
Yeah.
The internal mechanisms for the warhead itself a wire can't come loose. It needs to know that it explodes at a certain location. All that stuff has to work. And that's maybe where North Korea hasn't perfected something yet.
Okay.
The most recent test that they did on their ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, some people have said that the video footage that was shown from Japan, because you can kind of see where the rocket's coming in, it might have broken up. So they're still going to have to work on that.
Okay.
But, it's one design challenge that you're trying to develop, and you keep going. Most likely the warheads that they have now are fairly simple, probably between 10 and 20 kiloton yields.
And how much did they say in the movie?
15 megatons.
Okay.
That's
so
fairly advanced.
Okay.
It reminds me a lot of the Red Dawn remake movie that came out a couple years ago.
Okay.
The original Red Dawn is the invasion of the United States by Cuba and Soviet Union.
Yeah.
This new Red Dawn was supposed to be the United States and China getting into a war. Last second, in post-production, they changed it to North Korea. And they're like, wait, hold on a second. North Korea doesn't have an army that's big enough to invade the United States. They don't have airplanes and amphibious assault vehicles. And okay, well, we'll just advance it 10 years from now and say, yeah, they're ready to go. The movie does a similar thing with their nuclear program. At a certain point, when you're talking about 10 to 20 kilotons, that can destroy a big chunk of a city if you can get it to where it needs to go. So in terms of the missile test, one of the things that we should worry about is not just the long-range ICBMs that are in the news these days that can hit the continental United States. What we should also worry about are the short and medium-range missiles that they have that can hit South Korea, Japan, U.S. bases in the region like Guam. Those are the kind of things that we should worry about as well. Just people shouldn't forget about that. You talked about how quickly this process, how fast it's going. Well, within the last 6 years of Kim Jong-un's rule, his entire time that he's been in office, they've tested more missiles than his father and his grandfather combined. As of July 28th, Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea as we know it today, tested 15 missiles across all these different platforms. His son did 16. Kim Jong-un has done 84. 42 in the last 2 years.
So that's quite a lot more.
It's quite a bit.
That's kind of scary.
And this latest rocket, the KN-14 Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, it's a liquid-fueled rocket. The latest tests in July have shown to be fairly, they've shown to work more or less. And the interesting thing about these types of tests is they are launched straight up into the air vertically, and then they will check to see the altitude and the burn rate, and analysts can decide from there how far it could go if they change the trajectory, maybe a more shallow, flatter trajectory. The more shallow you make it, the harder the reentry vehicle needs to be, because it's just a lot more instability in the whole process. You want to make sure the thing is more rugged, but it can show you more or less that today they have the ability, if these were to be deployed, to hit Los Angeles, Chicago, potentially even New York, Boston, and D.C., if you can change the trajectory and if the rocket is hard enough to maintain that. And they might not be, maybe a year or two away before they were able to reach that point.
Yeah.
So it's hard to figure out where they are, what they want to do with the weapons. These are all the debates that people think about these days.
Yeah.
But I think the final thing I want to complain about, to get super critical, is the movie's premise that if you just take out Kim Jong-un, if you make these people think that he's a crybaby, that it will change everything. That there's this movement just waiting for North Korea.
Yeah, if only we didn't have Kim Jong-un there, democracy would thrive and flourish.
Yes. And I think even the movie itself has internal conflicts. They say if you kill Kim Jong-un, the military or one of his brothers will just take over. But if you make him cry, then something different will happen. I don't really understand that process very much.
Yeah.
I think it's important, too, because a lot of people will simply say, why don't we just take out this person and everything will be fine? Well, we've seen that a lot of when you take a strong man out of the equation, a vacuum gets filled with someone we don't necessarily know who it is. There's not any evidence that says there's this dissent movement throughout the country that are just waiting for something to happen. These are people who have had propaganda put on them for
exactly.
decades.
I mean, that's it. I mean, you figure after generations of brainwashing, I mean, how do you expect? And it seems as if the level of control, because it's a relatively small country relative to, for example, Soviet Union or where they were controlling, the whole Eastern Bloc and everything. They had a lot of balls in the air. I mean, he can really focus in on this population and really have them under his foot.
It's hard to imagine that system breaking down and not just being a military takeover and finding some new person to take over. And in the movie, it takes little jokes. I mean, it's a comedy, but the very flippant response at the end, it's weird too. And hopefully people don't take away from that. Oh yeah, I mean, I know I laughed, but yeah, that policy makes sense. Everybody in Korea is supposedly watching this live in North Korea, which is funny because a lot of people in North Korea don't speak English. And there's no subtitles on the TV.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So they're just, oh yeah, here's what's happening. And the other things that they don't really talk about is China. What is China thinking about this whole thing? China would find out that the United States had an assassination mission. Most likely they'd figure that out. Or just, why isn't China involved in this process? One of the things that China worries about is that if there's instability, if the regime collapses, a couple of things will happen. One, North Korea and South Korea might unify under a common country that will be, one, having nuclear weapons.
And that country would presumably be a democratic,
yes.
Aligned with, more Western aligned than,
possibly aligned with Japan and the United States.
Yeah.
That's something that's pretty worrisome for China. China has studied the collapse of the Soviet Union and the unification of East and West Berlin, and has seen what happens when it takes place. They're also very worried about refugees that would flow over the border during a crisis and then come into China and cause a lot more social unrest in China.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's not really part of the plot. It's just, oh yeah, democracy, everything will be fine. Who knows what that would look like?
No, it feels like it's kind of like you got your neighbor, you got that crazy next door neighbor who walks around naked wielding a shotgun, and you don't want to touch him, but you also want him to just stay happy.
The movie doesn't talk about what happens with the military. Do they just give up and turn over? There's some scenes where there's like young military people in the film that kind of give up and like, oh, I'm on your side now.
Yeah.
Is that really what's going to take place? Because the military has had a position of influence and power in North Korea for the longest time. The Kim family dynasty could not survive without the military. And he knows that. His father has known that. His grandfather has known that. So the military is raised high. They get all the best benefits. In a world of a democracy, maybe the military wouldn't get that. So why would they support these upcoming democratic elections? But who knows?
Well, maybe in the sequel, Jonah Hill and Michael Cera go to travel to North Korea to resolve all these open questions about the power vacuum.
We'll get super critical about Superbad too. And also what happens to the nukes. They don't really talk about that. Sorry if I made you more anxious and have given you more nightmare fuel.
Shall we play a game?
Let's play a quick little game here. I have a game prepared based on some of the silliness that we hear about North Korea. And again, I want to stress, North Korea, there's some funny stories that come out about it, but it's certainly a country that we should take serious in terms of what they can do. We need to still also be able to sleep at night and get through our day. So let's play a round of the classic game, Trivial Pursuit North Korea edition.
Okay.
Yep. So I prepared a couple facts about North Korea and maybe the Kim family that some of them are real in the sense that people talk about them. It's an actual thing that people say about North Korea, North Koreans say about themselves, part of the mythos of the Kim family.
Yeah.
And a couple others I just made up.
All right.
Let's play a game. Number 1. North Korean coal can be ground up, stirred into water, and drunk for a quick burst of 5-hour energy.
Oh my goodness.
Is that a real fact or a made-up one?
This sounds made up, I think, because if it was like Kim Jong-Un would do this, then I could see it being real. But I say fake.
Excellent.
That is correct. It is fake.
All right.
So I'm going to make a little mark here. I've got 17 of them. We'll run through pretty quickly. So if you get more than half, you get a prize.
Let's do it.
Fact number 2. North Korea smells like baked cookies when it rains.
I'm going to say that's fake, too. What would be that seems too Western. That seems too, like, Midwestern, baked cookies.
Excellent.
I should have said, like, a rice cookie
rice
with
cake,
bean paste.
Exactly.
Which are delicious.
Yeah.
That is true. It is also fake.
Okay.
I made that one up. But what about fact number 3? When Kim Jong-il was born, he was born on a sacred mountain A new star was formed. Winter turned to spring, and a double rainbow appeared.
This sounds real. This sounds like the Kim family ridiculousness that I've heard.
Excellent.
It's on the brochures. It is
Alright.
totally real.
All right, yeah.
All right, so you're doing pretty good so far.
I'll look for that star tonight.
Maybe there'll be some new stuff with Kim Jong-un and the eclipse.
Yeah.
Fact number 4. Kim Jong-un actually rides his ICBM missile test like in Doctor Strangelove, so we can most accurately measure their test results.
I think they peddle some BS there, but not that level. I'm going to say that's fake.
Excellent.
It is fake, but
Alright.
I just want that imagery.
Yeah, that's a pretty
hopefully,
good one.
at least they can
You
use
should
CGI.
Photoshop that.
Fact number 5. In 2016, North Korea invented a hangover-free liquor that is still 40% alcohol by volume.
This is a tough one, actually. This could swing either way. I'm going to say true, just because it's kind of like weird and ridiculous.
Excellent.
You're batting 1,000.
Wow.
That's
All right.
that's a real thing that North Korea says they claim.
Okay.
I know we got to get our hands on some of that.
Yeah, seriously.
Fact number 6. Kim Jong-il does not need to go to the bathroom.
Well, this was the joke from the movie, right? That he doesn't pee and poop.
But was it made up for the movie, or is it based
I think
on a
it
real
was made
thing?
up for the movie. I think it was made up for the movie.
Sorry to hear that, Professor.
No, man. It's a real thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
He burns all his energy internally and doesn't have any waste products.
Oh my god.
He works that hard.
That's insane. I mean, that saves what, like 20 minutes a day or something?
It's efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
North Korea, for fact number 7, already has the last season of Game of Thrones. And the ending is that Kim Jong-un is on the Iron Throne. Real or fake?
Okay, so knowing that I'm talking to a huge Game of Thrones fan here, I think you've thrown this one into the mix. I'm going to say fake.
Excellent.
Correct.
Okay.
But if he does, send me an email on supercritical.
All right, yeah, you'll be the first.
Yeah, supercriticalpodcast@gmail.com. I'll click that link. It doesn't matter. If I see Game of Thrones on there, I'm
Yeah.
going to click it.
Before the email address gets shut down by the North Koreans.
Exactly.
Get it in quick.
Fact number 8. In 2012, North Korean archaeologists unearthed a mythical unicorn lair just 220 yards from a Pyongyang temple.
Just 220 yards?
Pretty close by.
Oh my god. I'm going to say true.
Excellent.
Correct.
Ah, okay, nice.
I think hopefully you can visit it the next time when they lift the travel ban to North Korea.
Right, yeah. The next time I'm in the North Korean area.
Fact number 9. Kim Jong-il invented the hamburger.
Oh man. No, I'm going to say fake.
Sorry to hear that, Professor.
That one was real.
Wow.
All the props to him if he did invent the hamburger. It's delicious. Fact number 10. Kim Jong-il can count out to 500 digits of pi.
This is a tough one. It could go either way. I'm just going to say no. It's just a pure guess. Fake.
Excellent.
Yeah, I made up that one, so well done.
Okay.
But that would be a pretty cool talent to have.
Yeah.
I knew a guy who could do like out to 100.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
He probably was very popular with
Great-
the ladies.
Great at parties.
Yeah.
Fact number 11. Kim Jong-un bowled a perfect game in 1994.
I think this is... Oh, Kim Jong-un. This sounds true, and you're a bowling fan, so I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say this is true.
Excellent.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, you're rolling through it. Right now I have you 9-2.
All right.
Correctly guessing the real from fake facts. Real facts? It's hard to tell.
I've been reading a lot of fake news, so I'm able to...
You're studied up.
Yeah.
Fact number 12.
Okay.
North Korea has the cure for AIDS and Ebola, but won't share it with the rest of the world.
I think that's fake. I feel like they would want to be seen as being, global citizens magnanimous, so I think fake.
Sorry to hear that, Professor.
Nope. They claim they have it,
Really?
and they just can't have it.
Okay, but nobody in I sleep soundly knowing that nobody in North Korea has AIDS or Ebola.
It's pretty nice.
That's wonderful.
Fact number 13. Kim Jong-un could drive when he was 3 years old.
True.
True?
I say true.
Excellent.
Yep, that one's on a poster, I'm sure,
Okay.
somewhere. That's a true fact.
All right.
Fact number 14. Bill Clinton asked Kim Jong-il for advice on what to name his cat.
I'm going to say fake. That's weird.
Excellent.
Yeah, you got that one.
All right.
I thought that one was going to get you.
No.
I just think it would be funny if the name was Socks. That was what he
Yeah,
suggested.
Exactly.
I bet Kim Jong-il had a pretty good sock collection.
Oh, probably. Yeah, he must love socks.
Fact number 15. Kim Jong-Un starred in a remake of the movie Space Jam. Michael Jordan said it was vastly superior to the original. Real or fake?
I mean, I'm going to say fake. I just like the idea of a low-budget North Korean version of Space Jam starring Kim Jong-Un.
Excellent.
Yep, you got that one right.
All right.
Although Kim Jong-il is famous for having kidnapped a director, a movie star, for a long time, a number of years, and to make a bunch of movies.
Yeah, that was on John Oliver,
Yep.
right? Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a scary story, that whole endeavor. I'll put a link to an article about that in the show notes. Fact number 16. Kim Jong-il first picked up a golf club in 1994, and on his first game shot a 38 under par that included no less than 11 holes in one.
I'm going to say yes. This sounds like a ridiculous, one of those ridiculous Kim family things.
Excellent.
Yep, it is absolutely right. You can see somewhere the scorecard.
All right.
It's pretty good. Last fact. North Korea had its own Roswell alien landing event, but the aliens survived, and they never wanted to leave the country.
Does the alien still live in North Korea?
Possibly lives in that compound we talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
exactly. I'm going to say fake.
Excellent.
Correct.
All right.
Well done. Well done. I need to do better at my games here.
Man, I'm just, I'm up on North Korea.
Well done. You only got 3 wrong there, so you're now the North Korea expert on the podcast.
What's my prize, Tim?
I'll come up with something.
All right, cool.
Maybe I'll get you a bottle of that.
Of the magic liquor?
Yeah, the magic liquor. I'll look out for it. Well, I'll get you a bottle of Johnny Walker. How about that?
Okay, great.
In honor of the Supreme Leader.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
All right, so let's wrap up here. Let's do our parking lot movie discussion, which is where the movie's finished. Even though it had a limited release, let's pretend we saw it in the theater. We're in the parking lot before we head home. Let's talk about what we thought about the movie. Is it okay to have a movie that's a fiction film about assassinating a current existing leader? Is that appropriate? Is it okay because it's a movie and people can do whatever they want? So clearly, this resulted in some sort of international incident. Is it the responsibility of the filmmaker? All those kind of things. So
Yeah.
What do you think about this stuff?
No, that's actually a very good ethical question, I think. I would say this is on the side of parody and kind of farce, but it's just over that line. It's almost just uncomfortable enough to be a real thing about, sending somebody in. But the fact that it's kind of this buffoon guy going in, they have the Katy Perry thing. If this was a series, if this wasn't a bro comedy, yeah, then I think that this is maybe not in good taste. But I guess the other thing though to think about is they might not get the humor of it if it made its way over there, right?
I don't know. I think it would take a lot more analysis from people that are much smarter than me about Korean culture.
Mm-hmm.
If we heard of a movie in North Korea that's
Right.
about assassinating our president,
Right.
we would be like, wow, 1, that's silly, and 2, how dare you? I think people might be a little bit upset by that. I can see a lot of people in this country being quite upset.
Yes.
Recently, there was a bad CGI film that North Korea's state-run media agency released where it shows blowing up New York.
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
And we all some of us laughed at that. Some people got really upset by that. Some people worried.
Yeah.
So is it the same thing? I don't know. But I know Seth Rogen thought it was going to be a positive impact. He predicted that the film would make its way into North Korea and, quote, "We were told that one of the reasons they're so against the film, them being North Korea, is that they're afraid it will actually get into North Korea. That they do have bootlegs and stuff, and maybe the tapes will make their way to North Korea and cause a revolution." And then I'm sure he did a Seth Rogen laugh like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I mean, there is a long history of art and writing and film encouraging a dissident movement. I mean, a lot of writers under the Soviet Union. Who knows if there is something like that in North Korea? We don't know, and I would think it's probably not very likely. So maybe it's. But is it appropriate for the West to kind of take that role as the to put forward the dissident movement? I don't know. That should probably be left to the local people, and I worry if they tried to do anything like that, they'd be murdered, frankly.
There are some groups that are trying to do similar things in North Korea. There's a group called Fighters for a Free North Korea and another called the Human Rights Foundation that airdropped USB memory sticks into North Korea with the entire Korean language Wikipedia. and a couple other documents and films. You saw that in the John Oliver clip that recently was shown.
Right. Yeah.
They were showing things like, what was it, like NCIS or one of the cop shows, and they were showing someone being arrested in the United States.
Yeah, showing
and being read their rights.
Exactly.
Yeah. So to show that there's an alternate thing that people can see and of a different reality.
Yeah.
I think some of those things might be more powerful than assassinating their
right.
leader. So if this film was a little more serious or a comedy, but it didn't have a graphic depiction of their leader being destroyed, it's how you communicate that message. And simply to say, oh yeah, no, this is the silly thing. This is how Americans act. By the way, little message at the end. If this happens, if your leader is killed, don't worry about it. Don't blame us. Don't blame whoever it is. Everything's going to be fine, and you're going to live in peace forever.
No, that's fair. I think that's a good point. I guess there is some seriousness to this, though. Or here in your show notes, you have that the Rand Corporation defense analyst Bruce Bennett said that the film was coarse and over the top, but that the depiction of Kim Jong-Un was a picture that needed to get into North Korea. There are a lot of people in prison camps in North Korea who need to take advantage of a change of thinking in the North. So, who knows? Maybe this is part of a new set of films as we go down this path that will maybe try to do this.
Maybe get a different team of people working on it. Make it a little less about dick jokes and love interest of weird things like that.
Yeah.
Have it a little different. Maybe it can work.
We need Tom Hanks. We need J.J. Abrams. We need some high quality talent.
Who hates Tom Hanks?
Exactly.
So let's close it out here. Let's do our rating system.
Okay.
As listeners to the show know, we like to have a consistent rating, 1 out of 5, to rate the films or the pop culture, whatever it happens to be that we're doing. But we want to tailor it so that it's it's exact to the film, so that it's not some generic rating system. The listeners of our podcast don't get generic rating systems. They get finely tuned the best.
Yeah.
So I think for this one, let's do 1 out of 5 fireworks.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
1 fireworks really not as impressive as 5, especially when the goal of said fireworks is to show them what you're worth.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So how many fireworks, 1 out of 5, would you give this comedy?
I'd say I'd give it 3. I mean, it's not a great movie. There's some good running gags in there. A lot of reliance on what you'd expect from the bunch, but they get, I think, some extra points for actually having some thought. I mean, the fact that we were able to talk for almost an hour and a half out of this, that's pretty good. So 3 I think is appropriate.
I would also go 3.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was silly, but there was definitely some scenes that I enjoyed, and I got really upset about the nuke stuff. And then when we rewatched it today, some of these things don't bother me as much. Maybe I'm getting older, but there are some stuff that keep it from being a 4. Comedies are rarely for me 5, even though I really enjoy them. I just have a high bar for like a top 5 comedy.
Right.
Like Blues Brothers I think is hilarious. It's funny. That kind of comedy is a 5 out of 5. For this one, if you took out some of the more already played out stereotypical Asian racist humor,
right,
you take that out. You take out the kind of weird Orientalism with Suk and the Seth Rogen character. You can just do that differently, and I think this would be very, very, very funny, more than it already is. But it's hard to feel weird. It's weird to criticize and nitpick a comedy.
Right.
No one wants to be that guy at a party.
I get you. I mean, they could have done more. It's an interesting idea, and they maybe could have done more with it, but I think it delivered what was expected of it, and it's good for a laugh and good to talk
It's hard to
about.
compare it to the hype that went into it.
Yeah.
The tagline for this movie is literally the film that North Korea didn't want you to see.
Right.
It maybe didn't live up to that, but I would say a 3. I would recommend it to people to see as a cultural touchstone, but that's about it. We usually have some sort of recommendations at the end. If you like this, also check out that. I've got some things. Maybe Gabe's got some things that he come up with. I have 2 things here. One, a book called Nothing to Envy, Love, Life, and Death in North Korea by Barbara Dimmick. Came out in 2010. It's a great story about life in the Hermit Kingdom. Really a lot of dissident stories and paints a good picture of what North Korea is like. 2, just read the Arms Control Wonk blog. And the Arms Control Wonk podcast is a great thing to listen to. It's done by Jeffrey Lewis and Aaron Stein, Jeffrey Lewis works for the Center for Nonproliferation Studies. They have a great series of discussions about North Korea. They're some of the best people that have satellite imagery and open source information. They look at the pictures of the rockets during the parades, and they can tell you what the Rocketeer designer had for lunch. Like, they're that good. for that kind of analysis. So check them out. If you're not following them, you're not really following the North Korea missile situation.
Yeah, and I'd recommend actually this website, North Korea Econ Watch. It's nkeconwatch.com. I was actually by a student who was at George Mason University while I was there. He was a PhD student, and not really tailored to nuclear stuff, but just a good idea of some of the stuff going on in the country if you're interested in North Korea.
And obviously, a lot of people know about Team America World Police by the guys from South Park. That movie parodies Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father. It's always a fun one. I don't think I have to actually recommend it because you should already have heard about it. But if you haven't, it's another fun take, and I would say that's a better comedy, and the whole thing is done with puppets, like
Marionette.
Yeah. So check that out if you like these kind of things.
There's a fun scene there.
Yeah.
Nothing else needs to be said about it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Super Critical Podcast. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or want to tell us what we got wrong, there are a couple ways you can contact the show. Facebook. We're on there, facebook.com/supercriticalpodcast. Twitter. You can @ me at Nuclear Podcast. Email the old-fashioned way, supercriticalpodcast@gmail.com. Again, if you send me a link, I just can't help myself and I'll click it. Hopefully North Korea doesn't try to abuse that, but if you enjoyed the program, we would appreciate it if you were considering subscribing on iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast and leaving a 5-star review. Let us know your favorite made-up North Korea fact in the review, the 5-star review, and I'll talk about it on Twitter, and I'll see if anyone else can tell whether or not it's real or fake. Until next time, this has been Tim Westmyer.
And Gabe.
And remember, if it's pop culture and radioactive, we are bound to get super critical about it. Have a good one. And to our listeners in North Korea, 잘 가세요.